Alright, I really hate editing videos, so I'm going to try to do as much of a one shot as possible, but we shall see. I am in deep, deep, deep in the Scooby brain rot, uh, and I'm tired. But hello, friends. Welcome to my video in which I will tell you the results of my quest for Scooby's best film, which was inspired by a video that my good friend Quincy sent me from Bread Sword, video essayist on YouTube, who did a whole comprehensive video about Scooby's history, his own rankings, and a brief summary of each movie, except for The Sword and the Scoob, because that only came out earlier this year, 2021, and the crossover film with Courage the Cowardly Dog that I haven't seen yet, because by the time that I finished my watch list, it came out a week later, and I was like, no, I'm gonna cut myself off at a reasonable 45 films. You heard right. I watched 45 films in the Scooby-Doo franchise between January and mid-September. I did the goal of completing my watch list before Halloween. I was originally going to make this video for Halloween, but things came up and nothing went my way, and it's been a wild ride, but I'm so happy that I got to cross this off my resolutions list because I fell short on so many other things. If you know me, you know that I'm absolutely nuts, and go hard in everything I do. So I made a 10 category rubric to help me keep track of all of the Scooby-Doo movies because honestly, without it, everything, the Scooby brain rot would be worse because all the details would melt and mesh much more together in my slowly shrinking, shriveling up brain. It is wild. So, my 10 category rubric goes, number 1, music. I've learned a lot from this video by Bread Sword, and it's basically a brief history of Scooby franchise. Music is really important to it because it's one of the foundational things that Scooby and Mystery Inc.'s existence is based on. The premise, the series' entire premise of 4 teenage sleuths with an animal companion originated from a show called Mysteries 5, in which a band of 4 teenagers-ish traveled the country with their dog, who sometimes played the bongos and just solved mysteries along the road. The musical aspects of Mystery Inc., or the musical origins, have been referenced multiple times in the franchise's history. One of my favorite moments is their stint in the 2003 movie Legend of the Vampire, where they competed as a band in a rock competition as a cover for their sleuthing, and this rock competition was taking place in the outback of Australia. It was great. So all of that information is in addition to the fact that just no Scooby movie is complete without a music montage chase sequence. It has to exist to make it a Scooby film. That's why this is the number 1 criterion. Number 2, opening sequence. A good opening sequence just has so much power to me. My favorite is a solid cold opening that sets up the mystery, and then it jumps straight into a banging title sequence. Number 3 is animation. So I don't know a lot about film and animation. I know enough to appreciate it, I guess, as a super fan, but I don't know the technical stuff because I didn't study any of it. I just wanted to make animation a category because I wanted to A, give props to the hardworking animators who make these films possible, B, talk about, I guess, color palettes and fun animation styles that are used for the title sequence, and C, highlight how animators and directors experimented with film techniques in the realm of animation. They at some point drew wide angles and did everything that they needed to do in order to mimic sweeping camera movements and tracking shots that allow us to really experience mystery and adventure with the characters at different levels. And it kind of like just, I guess, in a way, help these movies feel like they evolve over time, which makes me feel like, yeah, Scooby-Doo's still relevant. I don't know. I'm sure there's like a lot better ways to put it, like cooler, more technical, very much more interesting explanations for all these things I'm trying to discuss. But I don't have the brain capacity for that. I also just don't really know much about it because I haven't put in the time and effort to study that and like write a better script. So, meh. Number 4 is just spookiness. Was it a good mystery? Was the antagonist spooky? That's it. Along those lines, category 5 is good writing. Did I feel like the writing was good? Which is not a very great criterion. My taste is just trash. But yeah, like when it came to the lore, whether it was like the lore surrounding the mystery itself or adding details to the Scooby universe, I just feel like writing elements were good. Even though I understand I'm not a good judge of that. Whatever. Anyway, we got category 6. It's characterization. Did Daphne have depth or chances to show off her badassery? Did Velma exude big dick energy or have moments where her skepticism was shaken? Did Fred lean into his archetype of being a lovable himbo? Did Shaggy step up or try to be brave in his own way, becoming competent? And the most important question for characterization is, did Scooby-Doo do everything that Scooby-Doo should do? Now we have category 7, messaging. Did a nice message about love, friendship, or how rich people are greedy snakes come through in this movie? Category 8 is somewhat related for the conclusion. Was there a satisfying "you meddling kids" or Scooby-Doo or an ending sequence that felt like the mystery was wrapped up well and that the characters just felt some sort of resolution? It also helps if there was an amazing outro song. And then the last 2 categories are just wiggle room points. 9 was like general enjoyability. It was whether or not I was having a lot of fun watching or rewatching the movie. Number 10 is literally called je ne sais quoi, like the whatever factor that kept me coming back to this franchise and somehow wanting more, even though I've watched so much now. Oh my gosh. Here's the list. Worst to best. At the bottom tier, I have these 15. Here's the last 5. No other explanation right now, other than it was my cup of tea. Number 40 is Daphne and Velma. This was like a really cute attempt at, I guess, girl power, pandering to girl power, because they put Daphne and Velma in a situation where it was only those two. There was no Shaggy, Fred, or Scooby to do any of the help in solving the mystery. So that was kind of nice, and they kind of like explored friendship between teen girls. It was sweet, but there was so many glaring problems with the writing, and I think that like both actresses tried their best with what is given to them, and they did a great job. And yeah, it is what it is. That being said, the next thing is, oh my gosh, The Mystery Begins live action. That's at spot 29. That is also a it is what it is type deal. It's so very 2000s nostalgia. Like, anytime I hear the song You and I by Ann Arbor, I unfortunately think of one of the first shots in this film, The Mystery Begins, where Shaggy is like walk into the entrance of the high school, and it's just all the stereotypical, like, people running around the front lawn of the school in cliques and whatever. It's a moment. It's a really cute attempt at an origin story. They took that, like, whole breakfast club, a bunch of people from different parts of the social hierarchies of high school come together in detention, and a lot of them have their own issues, so they don't necessarily have friends, but then because they're in detention, they kind of, like, find some common interest amongst everyone that happens to be mysteries, and then they become friends. Kind of Breakfast Clubby, I guess. It's cute. It's cute. It was watchable. It wasn't good. The mystery was so easy to solve. There was no real whodunit. It really was just, like, trying to set up the entire relationship between the teens and Scooby. I loved Haley Kiyoko in it. It was great. Everyone else did their best. Haley Kiyoko, I just thought, like, carried the entire cast, but that's just me. 38th spot goes to Curse of the Lake Monster. Once again, Haley Kiyoko carried this movie. I think her trying to pretend she has a crush on Shaggy was a whole moment. Oh yeah. Essentially, in this movie, the high school gang is now on summer break, and they are taking a job at Daphne's uncle's country club, but then they hear that the country club is being overrun by monsters, or rather a monster is haunting the country club, and so even though they were employed separately, they decided, like, hey, while we're here, let's just, like, sleuth around. And I thought there was, like, more of a mystery element, because again, they just assumed this movie just came from, you all know these characters, you know what they're about, so let's just, like, jump into, like, other things. That's why it was a more interesting movie. It was still not very good. So when I say more interesting, it's really not saying much. So we got 37 now. Is Scooby-Doo 2002, the live action, the first Scooby live action film, was totally saved by their amazing soundtrack, because it made me rediscover the song The Man with the Hex, which starts with a covered sample of David Bowie's Magic Dance from the 1986 movie Labyrinth, where Bowie played the Goblin King Jareth. Oh, and Sarah Michelle Gellar and Linda Cardinelli were absolutely amazing, carried the whole movie, and this was also Matthew Lillard's first go at Shaggy, which was a magnificent casting choice. And the premise of this movie was the gang split up because Fred had an ego on him and nobody was satisfied with their roles anymore. And then they had to, like, reunite because they all got tickets to go to this place called Spooky Island, and they got entangled in a mystery on Spooky Island. Shaggy and Scooby were kind of avoidant, but they also were just excited to see their friends again because they just, like, missed their friends so much. Daphne and Velma were fighting for their spot and their roles and, like, their sense of importance on the team, and Fred just had to have his ego taken down a notch. It was a good time. It was better than the high school, I guess, like, mid-2000s, 10s attempt at it. Yeah, it was a lot. Gosh, the Scooby brain rot is getting to me. Okay, so my mom just got home, which means there's gonna be a lot more stopping and starting when it comes to this video. So it's cool, it's fine, it's whatever. Anyway, I was at number 36. Which is Scooby-Doo and the Monster of Mexico. There were a lot of good things in this one. There was a lot of good things going on. A great monster, amazing traps, solid chase sequence, but the unmasking confession was really, really sad. Essentially, the main culprit was this white woman who did it because she wanted her husband's property and told him to his face that she didn't love him and she was just using him for his property the entire time. But I mean, everything else about it was so good. There was a genuinely scary monster. You got to actually see a bit of the town. We learned that like Fred likes to have pen pals. It was cute. And then, yeah, the ending just kind of ruined it for me. Whatever. 25. No, sorry, not 25. This is what happens when I don't wear my glasses. 35 is Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School. This is an older one. It's from 1988, and I absolutely love this movie. But it was a really sweet, spoopy adventure, but there was no mystery. And because there wasn't a mystery, it was like, I don't know, didn't feel right to me. But it's a great adventure story. I would totally be Scrappy-Doo, just super stoked about being at a charming old castle full of nice ghouls. But I'm not as strong or as cool as Scrappy, so I actually can't be him. And that's something I just have to learn to live with at this point in my life. Very, very sad. But oh well. Number 34 is Aloha Scooby-Doo, and this is in the bottom tier because I am so angry with this movie because there was so much wasted potential in there. And if I cannot further explain because I can literally talk about it for like a couple of hours how much wasted potential there is. But essentially, Scooby and the gang are invited to go to Hawaii as a part of a vacation, and on their way to this particular surf coastal town where a surfing competition, the Big Kahuna of Hanahuna, is hosted, there is a monster chasing away all of these competitors, mostly howleys, and it's kind of amazing. Because there was like a brief discussion or like brief not discussion but like subliminal messages about indigenous like reclamation of tradition and land, but then it all got washed away because the people who did the crime were two indigenous yuppies who wanted the property not to reclaim their land, but to like build fancy new apartments to gentrify the area and just live off of whatever money that comes with that property. There were so many good red herrings too. Like there was a white woman mayor who was like, everybody loves politicians and everybody loves politicians who loves dogs, and another property owner who was a good red herring. Heck, you could even have one of the random white guys at the very beginning screaming at Fred to like, turn away now, that place is haunted, go. He could have been the villain. He could have been like a left field villain, but no. Anyway, wasted potential. Moving, I will explain this hopefully another day with the better summary of the movie, but whatever. Okay, next, 33, Lego Scooby-Doo Beach Blowout. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's a Lego movie. It's absolutely ridiculous, but it was so much fun. Great musical opening number that sets up the mystery. Lego gags galore, and there were pirates. There were pirates. Pirates honestly do it for me. Number 32 is Scooby-Doo and the Samurai Sword. Y'all, there was so much going on in this. There was like ninjas, kung fu masters, mystical arts of the East, robots. There was so much going on in this, and it was like it was as ridiculous as the Lego movie, but because of how much they tried to add, but it's messy. I did however, really love the fact that they made Daphne in this particular movie into kind of like a musclehead. It was really cool, and I think this is one of those, it was one of the first movies where I actually saw Daphne take more on action girl roles. Very cool. And now anytime I see a Scooby movie in which Daphne is the musclehead of the group, I just live a little bit. Like musclehead and a bit of a thrill seeker. It's great. This is place 31. It goes to Scooby-Doo Stage Fright. This is a movie that is like the Scooby and the gang are going to this theater because Daphne and Fred get into this X Factor type show. And this is an old theater and it apparently has a phantom in it. So it's very much Phantom of the Opera. And I love Phantom of the Opera because I'm trash like that. But not like this. There were so many unmaskings because everybody wants to be the Phantom. Like, it was a running joke that stopped being funny after the first red herring. And yeah, so Daphne and Fred are in their like almost maybe kind of relationship moment, but like on live TV as they sing a duet for the X Factor competition, which they didn't really win because they were too busy also trying to follow the mystery of the phantom that haunts this theater. And then there's another mystery that is like parallel to it, in which there's a thief who tries to, I guess, steal jewelry. It yeah, it's like two mysteries at once, and then the mystery of the phantom is like just beaten to death, and it's a whole thing. But it's better than everything else, which is why it's at 31. So that's the bottom tier. That's the bottom tier. Now let's just go to the middle of the pack. So this is like just good movies, I would say. Like these are the ones that I would most likely rewatch more of if I get like desperate or just for some reason really want mediocre content to just put in the background and not really have to care about or listen to necessarily. This is that content. At 30 is Chill Out Scooby-Doo, in which Scooby-Doo and the gang, I forgot exactly how they end up in Nepal, but definitely somewhere in the Himalayas, and they have to face a Yeti or like understand the mystery of a Yeti, and everything about it was cool. Like I think the opening sequence of this particular film had an off-screen character death. It was very intense, and the actual way that they introduced the Yeti, so the antagonist, was so cool. It's like you can't totally see the form of this creature because it was so blurred out by the snowstorm surrounding it, but it had these glowing eyes and clearly towering otherworldly structure. And then obviously we don't get a glimpse of him just yet because the character who did get a glimpse of him is the one survivor amongst the group, and there was like, I'm pretty sure, a character death. It was a really intense like opening sequence. Wow. But anyway, somehow the gang got wind of this and ended up in that spot to, I guess, just understand the mystery, like unsolve this mystery and make sure like whoever is being taken is okay. Everything leading up to it, like them meeting people from the village, getting to reacquaint themselves with a familiar face from a previous movie, Dale. It was kind of like a nice little detail where they fleshed out the Scooby cinematic universe of the 2000s a little bit more. All of that like awesome detail was washed away by the end because the person who done it was a tour guide's younger sister who was enamored by Dale, who originally was in town for mystery, like to like understand the Yeti, ended up being like the radio DJ, and this younger sister somehow got like a crushy crush on Dale, and then Dale was like, I might want to leave, and then the girl was like, oh no, how do I make this man stay? It was wild. I don't know. Scooby Brain Rot makes me not want to. Also, I'm just kind of like tired right now. I do not want to explain this. So yeah, that's the 30th spot. I've spent too much time on this already. 29 is Scooby-Doo WrestleMania. Essentially, Scooby and Shaggy somehow won a contest to like get front row tickets or like meet and greet tickets to a WrestleMania competition. And then all of a sudden this like not resort area, but like the area where this competition was hosted is like a town for WrestleMania fans, but obviously all this is animated. And it's like terrorized by this creature who's like this vengeful spirit of a former wrestler, and Scooby and Shaggy have to be the ones who are like eventually in the ring fighting the creature or like trapping the creature into a fight. It's great. It's their name I think is like Skinny Man Shaggy and Dead Meat is Scooby. It's wild. But I thought the antagonist was actually kind of scary. The chase sequence is good. The music was like okay. So it fell short in some categories. And actually, above this is the sequel to WrestleMania Mystery. It's at 28th spot, it is Scooby-Doo and WWE Curse of the Speed Demon. So yeah, the WrestleMania folks had a part 2 Electric Boogaloo with cars. And I think the reason why I ranked this one higher than the first WrestleMania movie was because the intro song just slaps. The music for this movie was way better than the music for the WrestleMania movie, and to the point where I honestly just want to take a moment to thank Andy Sturmer, who is a musician, composer, and producer that writes a lot of my favorite Scooby-Doo songs. And yeah, he just like does so much amazing work for Scooby music, and that is the only reason why I rank WrestleMania 2 Curse of the Speed Demon higher than WrestleMania 1 Mystery. Whatever. All right, so let's go to 27 now. Please, let's just keep on going. That one is called Return to Zombie Island. It's a movie where Scooby and Shaggy ask the gang to take a pause from solving mysteries because of either a bet or something that happened amongst the gang where Scooby and Shaggy were like, no guys, we have to, can we just please, and for the sake of our friendship, not worry about a mystery for once and just enjoy a vacation. And so the Fred, Velma, and Daphne are like, fine. We'll put on our blinders. We won't think about mysteries or anything. We're just gonna do a nice vacation for Shaggy and Scooby because they sacrifice so much by putting their necks on the line and doing the most cardio out of everyone on a regular basis, and just like enjoy this nice vacation to a place called, I forgot, but yeah. They're put into a situation where apparently Scooby and Shaggy win vacation to this quote-unquote tropical island that's not actually tropical at all because it's a trap. I don't know why. I honestly don't know why so many of these movies are put on the premises of the gang is going on a vacation that is not a vacation. It is either a trap set out for them or it is a trap that they walk into. So it's like, yeah, the mysteries, they don't necessarily seek them all the time. They fall into them. It's great. Anyway, the gang ends up back on Zombie Island without totally knowing that it was Zombie Island at first. Velma, Fred, and Daphne kind of like got the hints like, hey, this is not a tropical island. This place seems familiar. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Scooby and Shaggy were insistent on like, hey, it's vacation mode. Let's not do it. Like, let's not engage. They end up being tricked into partaking in a mystery thriller film where somebody was trying to reenact the events of Zombie Island, but with the cast, but without them totally knowing. It was an interesting way to re-explore Zombie Island and everything about it that made it like a wonderful film. But there was so much retconning, I think, that happened along the way, and it didn't feel like they were trying to honor Zombie Island, nor were they trying to make a decent parody out of it. It was just like a really odd attempt at poking at the nostalgia machine. Yeah. It was a whole thing. I have so many more words for it, but I cannot coherently express them at the moment. So we're just gonna say that it's at 27th spot and leave it at that for now. 26th, Big Top Scooby-Doo. That is a movie in which the gang goes to the circus and gets to know people from the circus because they are framed for a crime or they're under suspicions for the crime. So the gang meets up and buddies up with a bunch of circus performers to get to know them, get to know like what's happening, why are there thefts around the areas that the circus is jumping between, and who's the real person behind all of these thefts. It's an interesting premise. There's a moment where we see Daphne being like very much an adrenaline junkie. Velma is being really pushed outside of her comfort zone, actually, and Fred is lovable himbo. But what's really interesting is that this movie actually explores what happens when there is tension between Shaggy and Scooby. So Shaggy actually acting a bit arrogant and acting as if he is genuinely a human owner of a dog rather than seeing Scooby as his like equal partner, best friend. So like that was an interesting, I think, aspect of the film that made me rank it as high as it is because of the character exploration of Shaggy and Scooby being in a imbalanced relationship where Shaggy looks down on Scooby for being a dog. Yeah, I don't. There's a whole nother level to the mystery and other small things, like there's a train. There's a train action sequence in this film that I really, really love. So that's why it's up there in 26th spot. 25th spot is Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed live action. I actually own this on DVD because I loved it so much. This movie, this live action film, has one of the best villains, that I've seen in the Scooby canon, and obviously it is leaps and bounds above all of the other live actions. Because I just like live for the drama of it all in this movie. There's so much. There was like an exploration of the gang's past and future, and everything that they've done wrong, and everything that they want to do right, and all the tensions between them that was not resolved in Spooky Island, like the tension of Daphne and Velma understanding their roles, Fred really, really having his ego checked, and Shaggy and Scooby just trying to step beyond their comedic duo act. I thought was really powerful in this movie, as silly as it sounds overall. But like I think like the best overall piece of this movie was Velma in her like almost latexy orange suit walking through. I thought that was like an amazing moment in her character arc of her like stepping into her own power and being so more self-confident. It was amazing. It was an amazing arc. And it was an amazing outfit. If anybody knows what I'm talking about. Like Velma really carried the movie with Daphne. Like they were just so powerful in this movie. And I would honestly recommend anybody watching a live action Scooby-Doo movie to watch this one without watching the others, because you really don't need to. 24, which is Pirates Ahoy. Fred's parents invite the gang onto a cruise vacation to the Bermuda, or like the Caribbean, but like obviously they have to like go to the Bermuda Triangle, and like a lot of funky things happen, and people are disappeared and turned into zombie pirates, and there's like this treasure trove in a shipwreck that someone is looking for, and the gang has to obviously find out A, why are there so many people disappearing, B, who are the zombie pirates, and C, what's up with this treasure that people want. It was a really great mystery adventure moment. We obviously got to learn more about Fred because of the way that, like, you know, Fred's parents are not intricately, but like woven into the fabric of this particular mystery. And it was just overall a really sweet movie, a really fun adventure. Deserves to be 24. 23. Shaggy's Showdown. So, just as we learned more about Fred's family in Pirates Ahoy, we are learning more about Shaggy's family in this movie, The Showdown. Okay, so what's happening is that Shaggy's distant relatives invite the gang to stay at their, like, Old West in sort of resort place where people learn how to like ride horses and do rodeos and stuff. And we learned that Shaggy had like a great grandfather or whatever that looked exactly like him, and he's considered the villain of this town. The gang has to solve a mystery about like why is the ghost of Shaggy's ancestor coming back to haunt the town and wreak havoc and not disappear people, but like, you know, scare them out of their wits and chase them away out of town. And it was another kind of ploy to take the Rogers family's property. But overall, we got to see Shaggy step into a role of like an Old West hero where he like rode a horse. There was a lot. Okay, I can't talk anymore about that because, again, so much stopping and starting. So we're just going to go on to 22, Scooby-Doo and Batman, the Brave and the Bold. First of all, I really, really love this like version of Batman, the Brave and the Bold. I just like love the more retro animation style that this kind of title for Batman has. I think it's really cool. Oh my gosh. But yeah, there was a really great, funny interactions between Batman's Justice League and the Scooby Gang here. Aquaman was peak himbo, and I just thought that him and Fred matched energy. I also think this is the film where all of the members of the gang put on an individual Robin costume, and yeah, it's like a really sweet moment. And even though I got interrupted again, unsurprisingly. So let's go to just 21. Some people might argue with me that I should have ranked this one higher, but it is Scooby-Doo and the Alien Invaders. The premise of this one is that the gang gets stuck in like Roswell, New Mexico, and then all of a sudden, while they're like trying to find help on how to get their mystery machine to start working again or whatever, they're like, oh my gosh, what? This area has alien abductions going on? That can't be right. There's gotta be a reasonable explanation behind this and then investigate those alien abductions. And they meet this person named Amber and her dog Nova along the way, and Shaggy and Scooby start developing feelings for Amber and Nova. And there's like this really cute montage moment where Shaggy and Scooby envision futures with Amber and Nova that includes babies and puppies and flowers and picnics. It's very, very sweet, but it's also very, very heartbreaking. I just realized I said Nova. I'm wrong. I'm sorry. It's I said Amber and Nova. They're actually called Crystal and Amber. And yeah, they're the real aliens, and they're trying to protect their UFO, and that the humans are trying to like search for or use for their own purposes, because that UFO is going to take Crystal and Amber home, and they just needed the gang to help them figure out where that UFO is and how to get it away safely. And there's a lot going on. Whatever. Point being, real aliens, real aliens actually existed in this film, which is one of the reasons why a lot of people really liked it, is because this film, and honestly all of Stenstrom's films, involves like real, genuine, like otherworldly things. Like, it's not just men in mask. And even though, again, it's so amazing, the writing's great, it was just so heartbreaking. Like, the fact that Crystal and Amber shared this heartfelt goodbye with Shaggy and Scooby after the montage of fluff and butterflies. I just know I can't rewatch this regularly. It was also a little dry. I had to admit, I was not like a huge fan of the aesthetics of this particular film. I thought like the harsh palette was, the highly saturated palette was too much for my eyes. But yeah, no, like, as badly as I explained this film, it's a genuinely good film. It's directed by the director, Jim Stenstrom, who is amongst Scooby fans, who is heavily revered as like honestly one of the best directors of all of Scooby films, because of the way that he really intentionally incorporates like real otherworldly aspects to break away from the monotony of men in mask within the Scooby canon. However, like, as much as it hits on so many levels, it's that heartbreaking, like, Scooby and Shaggy finally had real substance beyond food, and it was just so kind of heartbreakingly taken away from them because of the way that like Crystal and Amber just had to go home. They couldn't live on Earth, obviously. And yeah, that's a whole thing. I think one of the best parts about this movie, and honestly all of Stenstrom's movies, is that Scooby is characterized as not just a talking dog, but a great mime, and like someone who like, he just like really, like, Stenstrom really like emphasized the cartoonness of Scooby. So he like not only like mimics people, but he'll like do this thing where I might have to like just do it in another video to really show you how Scooby like tries to morph his own cartoony body to look more like the people he's trying to mimic. It's great. Won't talk about it anymore. That's at number 21. Some people might say it should be higher. I can't rewatch this on a regular basis. Like, I feel like the ones that I ranked really, really high are ones that I really love and rewatch a lot, and have a lot of the like deep things that I just talked about right now. Let's just go to number 20, which is very much not deep and very much high parody. It's called Scooby-Doo Music of the Vampire. Oh my gosh, it is a Twilight parody musical with Scooby-Doo characters. So we have a super corny, with a capital H instead of a C, antagonist guy who has his eyes set on Daphne to be his like vampire bride because apparently he's possessed by a old vampire spirit dude, and the gang's all like, no way, vampires cannot actually exist, and we also have to like go and save Daphne, so let's do that. They got into the situation because Velma actually is the one who wanted to bring them to a vampire festival, and she was going because she actually secretly loves stuff like the Scooby-Verse parody of the Twilight books, but she also is obviously has a reputation as a skeptic, and so she wanted to meet someone whose life work is dedicated to disproving vampire. But then like all of a sudden they like run into this, I think, ancestor of a vampire slayer, and yeah, it gets a little weird, but like there's musical numbers. It actually starts off with a really cool opening sequence where a guy is doing kind of like a musical spoken wordy opening to the film and like the legend of the vampire around this like Louisiana bayou situation, and the actual cinematography of the entire opening sequence is probably one of the reasons why I ranked it even above Alien Invaders, despite it not having at all a good plot. I was just having so much more fun watching this particular movie that I had to rank it higher. So yeah, that's 20th spot. 19th spot, let's just keep pushing. 19th spot is The Sword and the Scoob. Even though there were so many things I should love about it, like hints at Arthurian legends, the gang traveled to England, and there was more like, oh my gosh, Shaggy has an ancestor that's important, and Velma's being like peak nerd. Daphne's obviously the muscles of the group and like the most competent in physical competition, so she had her like day in the sun with this movie. Fred was being the best cheerleader. Oh my gosh, he's such a great friend and cheerleader. So good. There's like all these elements I loved about it, but at the same time I felt like it was dragging a bit, as interesting as the mystery was, because at some point they all genuinely tricked the gang on their England trip to think that like, oh my gosh, we traveled to like Arthurian age of England, like we're in where the Camelot's supposed to be, we're in Camelot, and it was a very interesting premise overall. A lot of things should have worked, but at the same time there were so many better movies out there. So this is why The Sword and the Scoob, no matter how much I'm praising it right now, was number 19, because there were still, I think, better movies than that, even though it had a lot of elements that I loved. So now we're at number 18. Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase. That is another Stenstrom film, and this is another one I had on DVD. I had, I think, a lot of Scooby-Doo movies on DVD. But yeah, the gang is visiting their friend Eric at his college, and during this college visit, they're all of a sudden attacked by this creature called the Phantom Virus. And they're trying to figure out who is behind the Phantom Virus. Why does he exist? And all of a sudden, the gang is zapped into Eric's project, which is a 10-level video game. The reveal was that the Phantom Virus is invented by Eric's colleague, classmate, / guy who hates him, named Billy. He was just jealous that Eric had a better project than Billy, and he just made a Phantom Virus to mess with Eric and his friends. With Jim Stenstrom, it's definitely, I'm sure, much deeper than that, but I have no spoons to dive any deeper than this explanation. It's a very fun adventure movie. I would say there's like a solid, subtle mystery behind the entire adventure of it, which is really nice. But yeah, it's great. It's at number 18 though. Number 17 is Moon Monster Madness. So Scooby-Doo and the gang go to the moon because they're amazing and they can. And this movie is, I think, a really great like attempt to stretch the limits of Scooby-Doo imagination a little bit more. I don't know how else to put it, but they go to the moon and they arrive, and all of a sudden they hear that there's like creatures attacking the moon, kind of like, honestly, alien, right? It's not Alien and Predator the entire time. Like, there's a movie with just Alien on the title, I hope. Gosh, I'm really bad at this. It's like a really cool animated parody of Alien the movie and 2001: A Space Odyssey the movie. I think what I really loved about this is that at one point Shaggy made a kind of like, not necessarily philosophical statement, but like a point where he just made like a very thoughtful comment and was like, "LOL, sorry, I'm just hungry, and when I'm hungry, I just say things that I don't really mean," to like, you know, show that he's more than just like a half of a comedy duo, which is always cool. The overall adventure aspect and alien aspect of this movie was like so exciting. The antagonist is so great, and all the little pop culture references really got me into this one. There's also a lot of great tension between Velma and Daphne because they were talking about basically their role of like, who's the smart one between us? Can there only be one smart girl? So what does it mean when Daphne actually shows a lot of competency and Velma feels like she is lesser because she doesn't like all the things that she's so book smart at? She actually needs to evolve her knowledge to not only be things in the books, but also like other types of knowledges, including like mechanical things or like physical things that Daphne is also very good at. I don't know, it's a lot. Again, hopefully I can make another video and like explain this more coherently. Number 16 is Scooby-Doo and the Legend of the Vampire. So Scooby and the gang are all excited to take a vacation to Australia. In Australia, they end up going to the outback where they are actually specifically headed to a music festival, and they're like, okay, cool, what a cool music festival, but where are all the acts? Apparently, all the competitors have been scared away by these vampires who are trying to like ruin their set by like smoking up everyone and flying down and disappearing people, and it's all terrifying stuff. And then they're kind of like, oh man, that doesn't sound right, should we do something about it? Obviously they're gonna do something about it. And during this time they end up seeing their friends, the Hex Girls, who fall victim to the trap of these vampires. So they're like kidnapped in the middle of the Hex Girls, I'm sorry, are kidnapped in the middle of their set, and then the Scooby and the gang are like, okay, we need to like up our investigation, like find our friends and like figure out what's going on. So they end up posing as a band in the competition to set a trap for the vampires to steal them as well. And that, you know, went as well as it could, but a couple trial and errors later, they actually did end up finding the people behind the mystery of the vampire. It was an old band who didn't do well a couple years back, and we're like, you know what, fine, we're gonna have the greatest comeback scheme ever. We're gonna come back as like jaded vampires. It'll be super cool, and we'll just steal the show from everyone by chasing them all away. Whatever. It was cute. I really enjoyed it. It's super watchable. It has the Hex Girls, so it's like knocked up all the way up to the top spots. I'm a sucker for the Hex Girls. That's really what I'm saying about this one. But yeah, it was really great. We're finally in top tier territory. Oh my god, this journey has been so long. Okay, top tier territory. This is basically the top 15, but obviously I can't like have everything in the top. So for now, let's just do number 15, Scooby-Doo and the Loch Ness Monster. I I really love this movie through and through. The opening sequence is so beautiful. Like the animation and the way that it opens on a, I think, wide shot of this eerie castle with this moonlight gleaming on it, and then you hear sounds of the loch just just rushing through, and all of a sudden it cuts to immediate action of like, wait, what is going on? There's a creature terrorizing this area. There are people on boats, and they're kind of like, oh my gosh, let's not get into immediate danger already. And there's, oh, and then obviously we're like meeting Daphne's side of the family, because apparently Daphne Blake is the one that has like the ties to Scotland, and her family, the Blake clan, has this curse on them of being endangered all the time. There's so many cool elements and so much more depth with Daphne in this one. It's fantastic. Best part of this entire movie, I would say, would be Velma's approach to the mystery of the Loch Ness Monster. Because in most cases, in many, many, many renditions of her character, all of them in all these, like, amongst these 45 films, she typically is characterized as someone who is very skeptical, who is like, no way these mysteries exist, and there's always some reasonable, logical explanation behind it, and we just gotta reveal the truth. Like, we just have to. Then there are the couple of movies that really allow Velma to just be like, it's okay to have a little bit of mystery, magic, or something unknown and untouched be what it is. That's why I think so many people love the Jim Stenstrom movies, is that Velma didn't consistently insist that things are impossible. Like, they're absolutely impossible. Like, there's no way witches exist or ghosts exist. And then she sees it with her eyes and still denies that possibility. Those movies allow her character to be like, okay, they exist. Maybe we can just acknowledge that it's possible for them to exist and that we don't see it every day. So it's more of an outlier than a norm, and that's okay. In the Loch Ness Monster, it's one of the first time outside of the Stenstrom movies that you actually see people approach Velma's character like that, where she's not completely insistent in dispelling this like belief and sense of wonder in people that like mysteries are possible, magic is real. She allows people to like have that kind of hope and drive themselves to do discoveries and like go on adventures to seek out truths and answer, because at the end of the day she just appreciates truth. And if that means like, hey, letting people who believe in the Loch Ness Monster believe in the Loch Ness Monster and like do their part in like going on scientific exploration missions deep down into the depths of wherever to find that answer, she's okay with that. And I think that's like really powerful, Velma. And yeah, I don't know if that's totally coherent, but I really, really love the Loch Ness Monster. There's a lot of really great things going on. It also has two really, really good songs in the soundtrack during some of the chase sequences. So yeah. Anyway, we can now move on to number 14, which is Scoob. It is a computer animated movie, one of the more recent ones, back in 2020, summer 2020. And it was more of an origin movie in that like they kind of rehashed all the points from The Mystery Begins live action, where, you know, Shaggy just kind of like found Scooby and just took him in one day because Shaggy's a lonely boy, needed a friend, and Scooby was a talking dog that needed a companion as well, and then they became friends, and then all of a sudden they like ran into Velma, Daphne, and Fred, and they like just bonded over a shared love of or interest in mystery and like whatever. Okay, so much chaos, so much chaos. Number 12 is called Camp Scare. Camp Scare is a movie about, gosh, everything about Scooby-Doo just gets more and more ridiculous as I talk about it more and more. Camp Scare is a movie where Fred takes the gang to his childhood like summer camp that he really loved. It's like an outdoor like sleepaway camp, and you get to learn a lot of things like fishing and making knots and whatever. And Fred is just so excited for the gang to help out as summer counselors at this camp. But he realizes that like not only is enrollment in this camp dying because nobody's really interested in attending the particular camp that Fred goes to, but also there is this camp legend, or maybe even two camp legends, actively trying to scare away campers and trying to like empty out the campgrounds. And Fred wants to do something about it. So he enlists the help of the gang to like solve this mystery. Like, okay, they have a couple of unmaskings of camp legends to do, but then they actually get involved into a greater plot that includes a backstory that with like a jailbreak, a plot to like blow up a dam, and a treasure hunt. One of the reasons why I rank it at number 12 is because of how wild it is, the very intricate backstory of the actual villain itself. Like there's so much more to the baby-faced mobster than I expected there to be, and it was like a huge surprise. It was a genuine surprise. We get to learn more about like where Fred gets his sense of adventure and love of traps and like stuff from. The set piece of the underwater town is just genuinely really, really cool. I love how there were two major costumes when it comes to the villain's attempt to do red herrings and like scares. That was awesome. Not to mention, this movie also had two of my top hits of the summer on it. So yeah, I incorporated songs from this movie onto my summer playlist. Wow, that kept me sane throughout the season. Okay, now we're just gonna go on to number 11, which is the Gourmet Ghost. So in this movie, we learn more about Fred again. Apparently he is the descendant of a chef that lived during the Revolutionary era and worked alongside George Washington. However, it is up to debate in the small town that care about Fred's ancestor, whether or not his ancestor was a traitor or a patriot. Either way, that legend of kind of like haunts Fred and his distant relative, who is now taking over that inn and transforming it into a culinary resort. Fred takes the gang to that culinary resort to introduce them to his distant relative, as well as support his new business. Apparently, this relative is Bobby Flay from the Food Network. And Bobby lets Fred know that he's been having trouble with this thing called the Red Ghost that's scaring away potential customers and guests. And obviously Fred wants to like support his cousin Bobby Flay and solve a mystery with his friends because that's just what they do. So they dive deep into like Fred's family history to understand the context of like what the Red Ghost is, as well as like do other things to like find, see if they can lure the Red Ghost out, find out who is behind the mask, if there is a mask, because there's always a mask, and it's just a wild time. The reason why I rank it so high at number 11 is because the Red Ghost is genuinely scary. It is terrifying. It makes like one of the first appearances it makes includes, I think, a jump scare moment. It has like glowing red eyes. The character design is super creepy, and it makes this hissing sound that is apparently a result of the drone that is used to make it move and float and fly without having an actual person behind the mask, but rather behind a controller that is covered by a mask. It's wild. But yeah, I rank it really high because of the character design of the antagonist, and I guess like the general deep exploration of Fred's background, which I just appreciated. I'm a bit of a nerd. I was like, ooh, okay, Revolutionary era, okay, I'll go for that. But yeah, the general ridiculousness and the antagonist design, and the lore around the mystery really got me on this one. So I'm sure you felt or seen the energy difference from the beginning of this video to this point in the video, mostly because like so much time has passed between when I started recording to this point in time where I'm recording, and the circumstances I'm recording under have drastically changed, hence the earphone. But we're finally at the top 10, and top 10 stands for every single movie scored 10 out of 10 on my rubric, and I just had to put them in some sort of order, and this is the order that I eventually settled on. No matter how many times I thought myself, this is it. This is it. It might change. Who knows? But yeah. Okay. So number 10 is The Legend of the Phantasaur, and I have so many good things to say about this. The opening sequence is phenomenal, and I really loved the opening title song. The general adventure of the Phantasaur was so cool and so novel. I couldn't ignore it. The way that they also made Shaggy into a braver version of himself is kind of hilarious. Like they were in a situation where Shaggy was put under a sort of hypnotic spell to like hear a code word and then automatically transform into a braver person. And if he hears that word for a second time, he resorts to his normal self. It's kind of funny because of the ways that he puts himself in a violent situation. And other characterizations, of course, were amazing, but Shaggy's really stood out in this one. It's just a wild movie, Legend of the Phantasaur. And yeah, there's the whole mystery of the Phantasaur is really interesting, and the way that they approached, like, okay, a Phantasaur is like a dinosaur, but like phantom version, so like kind of holography, but also does like real time, well, almost real time damage. Very interesting. And the motivation behind the mystery was that these archaeologists were trying to keep a discovery a secret because they didn't want public to know about it, and they wanted, I guess, like more time to study it and then take credit for it all to themselves, which is a very interesting discussion on like what does it mean to have those kinds of cultural artifacts, and who has like actual ownership over it. There wasn't much of an explanation on like the role of like indigenous communities in there, even though it was kind of hinted at, but nothing too deep. Overall, Legend of the Phantasaur, such a left field fave. I love it so much. So can we now go to number 9, Frankencreepy. Frankencreepy is a movie that explores Velma's family backstory, and it's a super fun take on it, but I have to admit it's not like my favorite version of Velma, but it's super fun. So this kind of film tries to explain why Velma is such a skeptic. It offers more space for her to be a skeptic as well. So it's like she insists on being rational and having an explanation to everything, and that there's no such thing as monster, not just for herself, but for the sake of everyone around her. Because apparently the backstory is that Velma's ancestor wanted to play Victor Frankenstein and was very unsuccessful, and their attempts at playing Victor Frankenstein caused a lot of trouble that actually forced the family to immigrate or just move away from that community. And then there was like a family bad habit tradition inherited amongst people to attempt to play Victor Frankenstein, to constantly try to do this thing where they create a creature, a Franken creepy, I think it's called. I think, like, literally it's the title of the movie, but I can't be sure anymore because I'm like losing it. But yeah, like everyone in Velma's family wants to like make the Franken creepy a living being, and nobody has done it yet, and it's like an obsession that runs through the family, and Velma doesn't want to be a part of that legacy. She wants to move beyond that legacy, make her own way, and live outside of the realm of like bringing to life monsters, because that's just so not possible. And she hates that her family is so obsessed with it, so she wants to be the opposite of that. And it's, I think, really interesting. But again, this is not my favorite version of Velma, but it's a really fun, interesting take on her. And the big reveal is that past villains that the gang put into jail all got out of jail and all plot and scheme together to lure the gang into Transylvania, trap them in a situation, and just like pick at their insecurities and make them just so unlike themselves that they would like fall apart as a unit and crumble in the face of their enemies. It was quite decent, actually. Really would recommend anybody to watch this, especially during Halloween. It's just super fun. Okay, so number 8. Oh gosh, I love this one so much. It is Scooby-Doo in Where's My Mummies? Oh god. Okay, another one with Velma. I really loved her role in this. She is given the role of like an archaeological assistant, and she's just like out here doing some cool archaeological work, working with a prince of Egypt, I guess, uh, trying to protect the contents in the Sphinx. It's a whole thing, but essentially what happens is that Velma works separately from Mystery Incorporated, but they all share a brain cell, so they all do this thing where they pull a reverse Uno on the antagonists. So usually the antagonists are the ones who are putting on masks and putting up schemes to like scare people away so they can like do their own like, I'll take what I want now that like nobody's in the vicinity to actually catch me taking what I want. The gang in this particular movie, Where's My Mummy, are the ones putting on masks and trying to scare away the antagonists. So they are preventing anything from being stolen. So there's a bunch of grave robbers and treasure hunters trying to like bust in to the tombs and steal Cleopatra's treasures or whatever. And the gang is trying to prevent them from stealing anything by putting on masks and scaring them away as much as they can. It's really, really fun. It's a really, really great, subtle way of all of Mystery Incorporating saying, fuck imperialist scumbags and treasure hunters, and it's beautiful. I really would recommend this one for anyone and everyone. Okay, I'm just also trying to get through this. Oh my gosh, I'm so tired. Okay, here we go. Number 7. Happy Halloween, Scooby-Doo! I'm actually one person who enjoys both the Fast and the Furious franchise and Scarecrow from Batman. Okay, let me explain. In this movie, on Halloween night, The gang has to bust a plan by Scarecrow to kind of like, you know, gas up an entire community with fear gas. They were able to book him, but then all of a sudden other things happen, which is like all these jack-o'-lanterns start coming to life and like wreaking havoc, like literally smashing cars and trying to chase away people. And I forgot the exact motivation behind all of this, but at some point the gang was in a car chase, so they lured out as many of the jack-o'-lanterns from the town to prevent the town from experiencing a lot of damage, to I guess like, yeah, lure those little monster things out of the way, out of people's harm's way, and then to isolate them so they can like really like figure out who's behind this or like what's going on, because there's no way these pumpkins are just coming to life. They do that, but it involves like a very long, very high energy car chase. Like people are trying to fight off these jack-o'-lanterns from the windows of their cars while another person's driving like very very fast, like going zoom zoom in the zoom zoom lane. And it's just a beautiful love note to destruction. I don't know how else to explain it, mostly because I'm tired, but at some point they actually had to catch up to the car that contains Scarecrow, and Velma actually busts him out. So instead of like, yeah, so like essentially Velma does a little bit of a jailbreak, and that somehow leads them to getting to solve their mystery. But what really stands out for me is like just all the Halloween elements. Like Halloween's one of my favorite seasons, as we all know, and I just really loved that. And I loved the music. The introduction song, the title song, was just an amazing bop. So good. Even honestly, the entire cold opening was really good as well. So many good things about it. But yeah, one of my favorite moments is that Velma can apparently go toe to toe with Scarecrow in like a short battle of wits. And Daphne, oh my gosh, Daphne is chaos queen in this. Her love of destruction and her meatheadiness was brilliant. She literally, I forgot exactly what line she said, but she's just kind of like, yeah, the pumpkins smash real good, and then just like started hitting all of the pumpkins with a baseball bat and her bare hands. It was beautiful. Okay, let's go to number 6 now. We have number 6, Scooby-Doo and Kiss, Rock and Roll Mystery. I love this movie so much. I genuinely enjoy Kiss's music. I think I knew too much of their music for a person who is not born with the same kind of nostalgia love of Kiss. But yeah, I know so much about this. I like deep researched about this movie, and I cannot just word vomit to you everything I learned about this film, but I really want to. I have no time, I have no spoons, I don't have mental capacity for that. All I can say is that the supernatural elements of this film is phenomenal. The way that they incorporate it, and the way that like they basically make out Shaggy and Scooby as the two people who are really good at keeping secrets, and like I guess like the ones who are opposite of Velma. I mean, they've always been very opposite of Velma, but they're the ones who kind of like allow wonder and genuine mystery and fantasticism to come to them, and not try to like explain them to death. They just kind of like let it happen and let it be as magical as it is. It's too wild. The way that they incorporated Kiss's music into the movie was, I think, really really fun. So like a lot of Kiss's hits were in it, and I was just like singing along to Modern Day Delilah, Rock and Roll All Night, like all of the hits. It was so good. Okay, so number 5, finally, is The Goblin King. Scooby-Doo and the Goblin King, I'm sorry. As if it's not clear that everything is just Scooby-Doo and. In this film, it's Halloween night, and Scooby, Shaggy, Velma, Fred, and Daphne are at a carnival. They step into a magic show and heckle the magician. That pisses the magician off, and the magician goes on to accidentally stumble upon real magic in the form of a pixie who he like locks up and like drains magic from. He becomes very power hungry, and then all of a sudden cuts to Shaggy and Scooby being separated from Fred, Velma, and Daphne, and they are somehow trapped in this like adventure story of trying to get the pixie, or at least, if not the pixie, away from this like petty magician, to like get the petty magician to calm down from all the havoc he's wreaking. And along the way, they meet a bunch of really cool magical creatures that, you know, the ones that go bump in the night. And those magical creatures help Shaggy and Scooby find their way to the Goblin King so they can solve the issue that they're trying to solve. That at some point, Shaggy and Scooby really tried to be brave and solve a mystery or like solve an issue and problem on their own, and they felt very discouraged because they end up being locked up in a dungeon, and they're kind of like, oh my gosh, we couldn't do it, we just got in so much trouble, we're here now, we're just useless, and all of our efforts were for naught. What was the point of trying if this was our result? And then, in a beautiful way, all these people that Shaggy and Scooby, well, not people, but like beings that Shaggy and Scooby met along in their like Halloween evening adventure, came back for them and like went to like come and support them in their efforts to really make an actual attempt to save the world, solve the problem, and they were successful. Again, this is a very bad summary. I could write entire love letters about this film. It's one of the reasons why it's at number 5 in my top 5. I just am letting the brain rot seep in, and I'm very tired from doing this video, so this is what it is. Now on to number 4. This is a wonderful, wonderful film. The music in this is like my favorite music of all time in all of Scooby movies. Okay, maybe not of all time, but it's the most accessible on Spotify, so it's definitely in many, many, many of my playlists. So I just like listen to it very, very often. Abracadabra-Doo, the premise of it is Velma is visiting her younger sister Melanie at her magic school because Melanie attends magic school, and there's a lot of mysterious happenings around the area that this magic school is under. Someone is trying to scare away the students to empty out the castle. And while Mystery Incorporated is visiting Melanie, they're trying to figure out, why? Why is there this mysterious creature called a griffin attacking people in the woods or making an effort to scare out students? And voice acting in this particular film is so well done, specifically by Melanie's voice actress. I cannot look up her voice actress's name enough to give them a proper props, but when Melanie is taken away to really scare off the gang, she, like, the voice actress let out like this life-threatening scream that was so well done and genuinely sounds so terrifying. It actually evoked some sort of like genuine sense of terror within me. It's just like, oh my gosh, I really hope she's okay. It was just gorgeous. And the two songs from this movie that I love the most are Abracadabra-Doo and magic. And it's just, oh, so good. It's on all the top playlists. It's literally on my 2021 Spotify Wrap because I listen to those two tracks so often. It's, ooh, Just for Laughs did an amazing job with those tunes. It's great. Let's go to number 3, The Witch's Ghost. A classic. A classic. And I know, it's shocking that it's not number 1 because it has the Hex Girls, and the Hex Girls make everything better. It's so good. The color palette that is in this particular movie is one of the most gorgeous palettes I've ever seen in my life. The way that it opens up with a very warm, autumn, bright color palette, and then as we seep into the night and just like spend night, it just like totally shifts to a colder, more mysterious palette. And the way that everything after the first night in this town of Oak Haven, just like the animation changed a little bit, the tones changed, the particular antagonist became more and more unhinged, and you can see that in the way that the art around him changes. Beautiful, gorgeous. Tim Curry voices the antagonist, and I'm so sorry. Wow, I really am like blanking on his name right now, but he's wonderful. And Tim Curry even said that like almost in his entire career, one of the lines that his character spoke in The Witch's Ghost has to be one of his favorite lines that he's ever said as an actor. And this is Tim Curry. Like, to have such power as a movie, like, wow, I love it. There's so many great things about it, but the music is great. It has music by the Hex Girls incorporated in there, Earth, Wind, Fire, and Air. Yeah, I understand there's no water, but like honestly, that's literally my entire natal chart. So like I'm into it. Literally the song Hex Girls is amazing. So top 3. It's 10 out of 10. Again, all of these movies in the top 10 are 10 out of 10. I just had to like organize them somehow, and it was so difficult. The only 2 movies that were able to beat out Witch's Ghost, well, number 2 is Zombie Island. Zombie Island also had amazing songs, like Terror Time Again. What a bop. What a banger. What a great way to open up your movie. And I really love this particular film's approach to Mystery Incorporated breaking up was that they got bored. Like they solved so many mysteries and it was becoming so formulaic, and they were getting a little not disillusioned, but like, you know, bored of the process. If it was all the same result, they wanted something different. They craved something different, so they decided to take a hiatus, go their separate ways, reset a little bit. Daphne went off to like do a journalism internship. That was really sweet of her to like try to explore her career and like think of other things outside of the group a little bit. But then they were reunited and they were so genuinely happy to see each other and like try again with one more real mystery. Oh, it was such a beautiful way to like approach that particular story plot that has been done to death. Yeah, I couldn't help but like really put it a little bit higher than The Witch's Ghost just because of like the tender reunion moment that we got to see on screen. Other things is that there was a really cool mystery of the cat people. Essentially, these cat people were originally settlers in the area that were attacked by pirates. And in order to protect themselves from being slain by the pirates, slayed by the pirates. I'm losing it. They offered up their humanity to their cat god, and their cat god gave them immortality with conditions as well as fierce transformative shifter ability, so they can become werecats and like be very strong and like have the magical ability to suck the life force out of other people so they can continue living on for centuries. What's really cool is that pirates that the cat people were trying to fight against were some of the first people that it killed, and then the pirates' ghosts were then became messengers of danger for future people. And and the pirate ghost actually made an effort to chase away or like warn the Mystery Incorporated to leave the island because it is cursed and dangerous for them to stay. So to take that curse and like try to help others is a very good twist, I would say. Anyway, it's wonderful. Music's great. Action's amazing. Color palette's beautiful. Character designs are great. I still think that like kind of like dressy outfit that Daphne wears throughout the time is one of my favorite outfits on her. I really loved Velma in this because of the way that she again allows herself to believe in the improbable and not to totally rationalize what had happened on that island. It's just kind of like, well, that's a supernatural thing that happened. That's not normal. But it is what it is, and you know, sometimes some mysteries should just remain mysteries. And I really thought that was like a great, healthy approach to it. Fred was a wonderful, wonderful teammate during the entire thing. Yeah, okay. Number one, my top favorite Scooby-Doo movie of all time, which is absolutely 1000% proven by the fact that I've watched 45 Scooby-Doo movies, and this is it. This is the one that like I really truly love with all my heart and can actually write many, many essays and love letters about. It is Scooby-Doo and the Curse of the 13th Ghost. The Curse of the 13th Ghost is a movie that is supposed to actually be a reference and a conclusion to the very, very short-lived cartoon called The 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, which aired around like I think like 1985, and maybe not a lot of people watched it, but essentially that series followed Shaggy, Scooby, Daphne, and Scrappy Doo along a summer where they like traveled to a couple of different locations with a guy named Vincent Van Ghoul and started to hunt for and put to rest or deal with 13 ghosts. And the series ended with, I would say, them solving around the mysteries of 12 ghosts. So the 13th ghost has never been in the series dealt with. In this movie, they finally deal with the 13th ghost. And so the movie is kind of like supposed to serve as like a final conclusion for that era of time. And it's really cute in the way that like it does a lot of like obviously erroneous continuity wrap up, and but there's a bit of retconning, but it was just like a really cool, for deep Scooby-Doo nerds like myself apparently, it's a really cool thing to see. A lot of old material being honored the way that it has, but also subverted and then evolved into something so much more fun to watch. Daphne, Shaggy, and Scooby are called upon by Vincent Van Ghoul to come and help him deal with the 13th ghost located in near Nepal, I would say. Definitely the Himalayas. And Daphne, Shaggy, and Scooby go, but Velma and Fred, who were not a part of that miniseries and therefore did not know that this was an adventure those three went on, are just taken along the ride, and like they are put into the positions of feeling useless. So it's kind of like, okay, Shaggy and Daphne are the ones taking the lead. They're the ones stepping up and leading the investigation / adventure. Then we explore like, what does that mean for Velma and Fred? What do they do when they are not the ones leading something? And it's really interesting because Fred just tries to become a really great supportive cheerleader and do his best to like fill in the morale roles that I think would be typically stereotyped to Daphne. And then Velma is in a odd state because Daphne, Shaggy, and Scooby express that they are dealing with actual supernatural paranormal issues, and Velma's like, no way, that doesn't exist. No. And there's a running gag in the movie where like anytime like actual ghosts happen, she gets knocked out. Like she just doesn't see it. Like she's just not conscious for that moment an actual paranormal supernatural occurrence happens, so she can't actually see it for her with her eyes. And so she just feels, one, very useless on this journey, but also like very shaken by the fact that maybe ghosts exist, and if ghosts exist, like what does that mean for herself? So she's in like a very interesting place. There's a lot of tension put on her character that I really enjoyed. And then Fred was just constantly trying to like fill a morale role, but he also visibly didn't have like a high sense of morale because he just felt so like useless, and that was very strange for him, and it was very interesting to see him explore all of that for the couple minutes that he did. But Daphne stepped up. Daphne just like waved her badass flag and was like, I'm taking charge of everything, y'all. And it was so beautiful to see her like be very aggressive and assertive and having fun with herself in this role. And then there was Shaggy, who, again, he was still very much a scary cat, but he was, because he had to step up, since he actually was alongside Daphne in these adventures, he knows so much, and so he could be competent. And it's so interesting to see him step into that, like, I'm going to try to be brave and do the right things role, because he just approaches bravery in a very unique way. Like, you don't have to be super macho or aggressive or extroverted to be brave. You can be brave in your own ways, even if that means you want to like backtrack a little bit. You can still, at the very least, stick up for your friend, be a great supporter, be a shoulder to lean on. Another thing is that the chase sequence in this particular movie was amazing. They have, I think, aside from the Abracadabra Do songs, my number 3 favorite song of the entire Scooby discography. I know I say I have many top songs in the Scooby discography, and I don't think I have the spoons to rank all of those. So the song that the main chase sequence is backtracked to, wonderful. It's amazing. I love this movie so much, and if anybody ever wants to watch it, I am more than happy to watch it with you, because I will watch it 1,000 times and will still love it just as much. So yes, that is my number 1. That is my entire list from 45 to 1. Thank you so much for being with me on this journey. Thank you so much for honestly watching however far you've watched. If you watched all of it, like, really kudos to you. If you just skipped through it, I wouldn't blame you. I honestly wish I could have given a much more substantial review than what I had given you in this video, not because of the production quality. I'm very sad about the production quality as well, but whatever. Like, I could have done a better job summarizing the movies for you. I originally wanted to like edit it and like have clips and sound bites in there. It's just so I didn't have to explain everything. Like, y'all can just see for yourselves. It all illustrated out for you. But yeah, no, that's a production quality thing that I didn't have any time for this year. Hopefully, though, I can do it, because I have been inspired by many friends to do essentially a video essay-ish series where I just talk about particular Scooby-Doo movies that I really love, and maybe even like explain why I didn't love the ones I didn't love, like the ones on the bottom tier.
So, you know, hopefully the Scooby-Doo saga with me never ends. There's only going to be more content. I hope to at the very least make a couple of videos that are essentially like love letters to my favorites soon. I hope there are some people out there who would also be interested in watching or like joining me on this journey, but definitely watching. And thank you to all the friends who supported me through this year and this journey. Really, really appreciate y'all. I love you so much.